Every day, we are confronted with the darker aspects of human nature, witnessing acts of cruelty that often defy understanding. While these tragedies are a painful reality, ignoring them is impossible. As someone immersed in the world of crime, I aim to share the most shocking stories and explore what motivates individuals to commit such acts. I'm Michael, and today I bring you another astonishing true crime tale. It was early morning on Anjuna Beach, a place famed for its stunning shores and lively parties. Yet, on this particular day, something was terribly amiss. A passerby strolling along the sand noticed something unusual. As they approached, they realized it was the lifeless body of a young woman, scantily dressed. Just hours earlier, she had been out enjoying the night, surrounded by music, lights, and new acquaintances. Somewhere between the bustling bars and the tranquil beach, a tragic event had unfolded. Who had been with her during those final moments? What truly happened that night? And why did authorities seem so eager to dismiss the incident? This is the story of Scarlet Keing, a girl who traveled to India seeking adventure but never returned home. Scarlet Keing was born in July of 1992 in England, the third of 9 children raised by her single mother, Fiona. Fiona's approach to parenting was unconventional. She lived life on her own terms and fiercely defended her choices. Her own childhood had been difficult, growing up in public housing with a single mother who struggled to make ends meet. At 16, Fiona moved out and, in a notable act of self-defense, injured an employer who attempted to exploit her, resulting in a conviction for attempted homicide that would leave a lasting impact. Over the years, Fiona maintained 5 different romantic relationships. Yet she raised Scarlet and her siblings alone, fostering a lifestyle that defied societal norms. She granted her children freedoms uncommon in their small town, choosing to homeschool them instead of enrolling them in traditional schools. This unconventional upbringing meant Scarlet and her siblings experienced a different social environment, one rooted in independence and closeness to nature. The family lived on a sprawling 200-acre property where they operated a caravan park and a camping site. To save money, they grew their own food and raised animals: chickens, goats, horses, and ponies. Scarlet and her siblings spent their days riding horses, exploring the outdoors, and immersing themselves in the natural world. In 2007, their lifestyle shifted dramatically. Fiona began a relationship with a 47-year-old man named Rob Clark, and together they decided to embark on a cultural adventure. Their plan was to travel to India, explore new opportunities, and perhaps start a business. Initially considering renting out ponies for rides, believing their appeal to children could generate income. To fund their journey, the family took an 8-month break from their usual routine. They sold one of their ponies and pooled every last penny from the welfare subsidies they received. On November 22, 2007, Fiona J. Robb and her 8 children boarded a flight to Goa, India. Their eldest child, however, chose to stay in England, adapting to life there. Moving to Goa was a significant adjustment. Stark cultural differences, language barriers, and constant interaction with people contrasted sharply with their secluded life in England. Fiona had always been open about alcohol, understanding that her children enjoyed drinking and socializing. She had no objections as long as they kept it moderate. While she discouraged drug use, she believed strict bans were ineffective, trusting her children to make responsible choices after educating them about potential risks. In Goa, Scarlet embraced her newfound freedom, expanding her social circle and relishing her independence. Due to the family's limited finances, the older children had to find ways to support themselves. During this period, Scarlet met Julio Lobo, a 25-year-old tour guide who owned a business offering boat trips and marine wildlife tours. She began working for him, and despite their age gap, they soon developed a romantic relationship. After spending 2 months in Goa, the family planned to move along the coast to a neighboring state. However, Scarlet was granted permission to return to Goa for Valentine's Day in Anjuna, a popular beach destination. She was eager to attend and hoped Fiona would allow her to stay with Julio, his mother, and his aunt. Fiona had visited their home before and found them warm and welcoming, so she wasn't worried about Scarlet's safety. On February 14th, Fiona received devastating news. A tragic car accident had seriously injured her eldest son in England. The family had to cut their trip short and return home much earlier than planned. On February 17th, Fiona called Scarlet, urging her to come back immediately so they could arrange their departure from India. Scarlet, however, sensed that this might be her last night in Goa and was determined to make the most of it. That evening, Julio wasn't feeling well and decided to stay home. Undeterred, Scarlet made plans to go out with Ruby, a 16-year-old Dutch girl she had recently befriended. Together, they set out to explore Goa's nightlife, eager for one final adventure. Despite being underage, Scarlet and Ruby parted ways around 1 o'clock in the morning. Ruby headed home, while Scarlet decided to continue partying at a bar before returning to her boyfriend's house. According to Ruby, they hadn't used any drugs that night, though she acknowledged Scarlet had smoked cannabis in the past. She couldn't rule out the possibility that Scarlet might have taken some substances if offered. What happened in the hours that followed remains unclear, but it was evident that drugs were involved. On the morning of February 18th, 2008, shortly after dawn, the battered and partially clothed body of Scarlet was found on Anjuna Beach in Goa. An anonymous tip prompted local authorities to respond, and investigators observed that her clothing was scattered nearby, alongside a pair of orange sneakers that did not belong to her. Scarlet's family was promptly notified and rushed back to Goa to determine the appropriate legal course. An autopsy revealed multiple bruises and clear signs of a struggle, ruling out accidental death. Yet, in a startling development, one of the lead investigators held a press conference claiming that the British teenager had died accidentally after passing out on the beach due to drug use. This statement devastated Scarlet's family, especially Fiona, who had seen her daughter's body firsthand and knew the official account was false. Determined to seek justice, Fiona enlisted lawyer Vikram, who took it upon himself to challenge the authorities' narrative. He drove her around Goa, visiting government offices and demanding that Scarlet's case be treated as a crime rather than an unfortunate accident. At one point, while Vikram was speaking with the autopsy pathologist, Fiona secretly slipped behind them and took photographs of Scarlet's body, proof of what the authorities refused to acknowledge. On March 2nd, Fiona publicly accused the police of covering up her daughter's sexual assault and murder to protect Goa's reputation as a tourist paradise. She pointed out that no genuine investigation had been conducted, citing the fact that her daughter's torn clothing, still lying unguarded on the beach the day after her death, had been ignored. The widespread outrage compelled officials to order a second autopsy, which confirmed Fiona's suspicions. The new findings showed extensive evidence of a violent struggle and sexual assault, with injuries concentrated around her pelvis and upper back, indicating she had been forcibly restrained. Toxicology tests revealed a mixture of drugs, ecstasy, cocaine, and LSD in her system. Additionally, her lungs contained water, but in quantities too small for drowning, and the water was heavily contaminated with sand, suggesting she had been submerged in shallow water, making an accidental drowning improbable. Given this evidence, forensic experts concluded that Scarlet's death should be classified as a homicide. Nonetheless, both the police and Goa's chief minister initially resisted reclassifying the case, insisting it was an accident, even as international media attention grew. Under mounting pressure, authorities eventually released concealed information. A British carpenter named Michael Mannion had been among the last to see Scarlet alive, around 300 meters from the scene. On the morning of March 9, 2008, Michael noticed Scarlet collapsing outside a bar. Suspicious men quickly approached her, but he intervened, telling them to leave her alone. He described Scarlet as heavily intoxicated, barely able to speak coherently. Soon after, he saw her enter the bar's kitchen, where she mingled with staff members, including 30-year-old bartender Samson Duza and 39-year-old employee Placo Carvalho. Witnesses later confirmed that Scarlet had taken additional drugs with them, including cocaine. Around 5 o'clock that morning, Michael found Scarlet lying helpless and intoxicated in the parking lot, with Samson on top of her. Alarmed, he shouted at them, sensing something was wrong, but ultimately chose to walk away without intervening. Based on these accounts, Indian authorities arrested Samson on March 9th, as he was the last person seen with Scarlet before her death. Witnesses also confirmed his involvement during her final hours. Shortly afterward, Placo, who was rumored to be a drug dealer, was detained as well. Both men remained in custody until their first court appearance, where they faced charges of manslaughter, serious sexual assault, destruction of evidence, criminal force with intent to outrage modesty, and administering drugs with intent to harm. Prosecutors argued that they had drugged Scarlet, assaulted her, and left her unconscious on the beach, where she ultimately drowned. Both suspects denied all allegations. On March 10th, amid growing public outrage, Goa's chief minister ordered a comprehensive investigation into the alleged assault and murder. However, just 5 days later, the case took an unexpected turn. Instead of focusing on the suspects or Goa's underground drug trade, police shifted their attention to Fiona, Scarlet's mother. She was criticized for failing to keep her daughter safe, and media scrutiny intensified. Fiona, a single mother of 9, who homeschooled her children and had allowed Scarlet to return to Goa alone while the rest of the family stayed elsewhere in India, suddenly found herself vilified. On March 25th, Fiona announced that a third suspect had been detained in connection with Scarlet's death. Media outlets speculated that this individual was Scarlet's 25-year-old boyfriend, but no official confirmation was provided. Fiona's lawyer stated that the suspect was being questioned for allegedly supplying Scarlet with illegal substances, though his identity remained undisclosed. Fearing for her safety after publicly accusing authorities of covering up her daughter's murder, Fiona went into hiding in Goa under the protection of 4 armed officers from the National Police. The case appeared deeply intertwined with Goa's powerful drug trafficking networks, which were allegedly linked to local police and government officials. Concerns about the legitimacy of her police protection arose due to credible threats against her life. She expressed her intention to return to the United Kingdom once India's Central Bureau of Investigation assumed full control of the case. However, bureaucratic delays prolonged the process far beyond her expectations, as did the release of Scarlet's body. By the final week of March in 2008, key figures from the initial investigation, the inspector and the pathologist, were dismissed for obstructing justice. Despite these dismissals, progress on the case stalled once again. It was not until June of that year that a newly formed team of detectives took over the inquiry. Although this development initially sparked hope among Scarlet's loved ones, their optimism was short-lived. On September 24, 2008, a court ruled there was insufficient evidence to directly connect Samson Douza to Scarlet's fatal attack, leading to his bail. As a condition of release, he was required to surrender his passport and was barred from leaving Goa without court approval. It was also revealed that Placido had quietly been granted bail back in April, without any public announcement from authorities. The next significant development occurred in April of 2009, when a court finally acknowledged that the police report concerning Scarlet's death was riddled with contradictions. On April 5th, the long-awaited trial against Samson Douza and Placido Carvalho commenced. Both men faced charges of culpable homicide, sexual assault, outraging modesty, and destruction of evidence. They pleaded not guilty, with their defense attorneys promising to expose alleged inconsistencies and omissions in the police investigation. A notable discrepancy emerged during the testimony of the officer who initially discovered Scarlet's body. Under oath, he stated that the time was 7:15 a.m. On February 18, 2008, an anonymous caller reported a body floating off Anjuna Beach. A colleague and an officer responded to the scene, where they found what appeared to be a foreign woman, partially clothed in a bra, with her eyes and mouth slightly open. After informing his superior, the officer claimed they pulled the body ashore while awaiting further instructions. However, this account conflicted sharply with his initial written report, in which he stated that a young man had arrived and was sent to fetch a sheet to cover the body. The inconsistency was glaring. No one would attempt to cover a floating corpse with a sheet, raising serious doubts about the officer's credibility. During cross-examination, he also failed to explain why his first report made no mention of injuries. Yet, in a later statement, he acknowledged seeing blood trickling from a scar on the woman's mouth. Further contradictions concern the timing of when he notified his superiors. Initially, he claimed the body had been drifting in rough waters and was only reported after being moved. Later, he contradicted himself, stating that a nearby worker had already retrieved the body before his arrival. These discrepancies fueled suspicions voiced by Scarlet's family that the police investigation was fundamentally flawed. Eventually, Fiona, Scarlet's mother, was called as a witness. Her testimony was complicated by her own legal troubles in the UK, where she had pleaded guilty to falsely claiming around $24,000 in benefits for her children between 2005 and 2008. Although the sum was substantial, it was spread over 4 years, averaging roughly $500 monthly for a family of 9. Fiona admitted to misrepresenting her finances, but insisted that the money was spent on her children's activities, including Scarlet's horseback riding lessons, not personal luxuries. Despite her hardships, Fiona was determined to testify, even if only via video link from prison. Throughout the trial, more troubling evidence emerged. A police officer testified that he had seen visible injuries on Scarlet's body, details initially denied by authorities. Fiona believed her daughter's death was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger drug trafficking network operating in Goa, allegedly protected by local police. She also suspected that the Indian government prioritized maintaining Goa's image as a tourist destination over uncovering the truth, adding to her family's anguish. Scarlet's body remained in the morgue for 2 years after her death, as authorities refused to release it until the legal proceedings concluded. Finally, in August of 2010, Fiona was able to testify under oath. She made explosive allegations, directly implicating Goa's former home minister and his son as leaders of a drug cartel shielded by officials. Fiona also revealed she had been warned her life was in danger if she continued seeking justice. During the hearing, evidence such as Scarlet's belongings, her underwear, shorts, and broken sandals were presented, causing Fiona to break down in tears. The defense team sought to discredit Scarlet, portraying her as a reckless teenager involved in drugs and casual relationships. They even introduced pages from her personal diary, selectively quoting entries to suggest that key details about her life had been erased. Fiona vehemently rejected these attempts, emphasizing that her daughter was the victim, not the accused. She insisted that the focus should remain on finding those responsible for Scarlet's death. One crucial testimony came from a man who claimed to have seen Scarlet arrive at a bar around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, providing a vital lead in the investigation. In the early hours of the morning, a visibly intoxicated woman, seeking someone to escort her home, was approached by 2 men inside a bar. They invited her into the kitchen where they consumed cocaine together around 2 a.m. He agreed to accompany her, but as they prepared to leave, Sampson intervened, insisting he would take responsibility for Scarlet. The prosecution's case faced a severe setback when the key witness, Michael, a British national, was unable to testify after leaving India, creating a significant gap in the evidence. Procedural delays and a change in the prosecution team compounded the difficulties, prolonging the trial. After years of setbacks, a devastating development occurred. The court acquitted both accused men, citing insufficient evidence, largely due to Michael's absence. Outside the courthouse, Samson Duza expressed satisfaction with the verdict, claiming justice had been served. Meanwhile, Placio, also cleared of all charges, dismissed the entire case as a baseless setup, insisting that he and Samson had been unfairly targeted. However, their acquittal did not mark the end of the legal saga. In February of 2017, it was announced that both men would face retrial after India's Central Bureau of Investigation filed an appeal against the verdict. This news brought some hope to Fiona, who admitted that each new development revived her determination. Yet, after years of disappointment, she resigned herself to the possibility that she might never uncover who was responsible for Scarlet's death or why. The appeal was scheduled to begin at the Bombay High Court within 2 to 3 months, though the entire process could extend up to 18 months. Expectations remained low. Fiona's lawyer acknowledged that while conviction was possible, it would likely be for the lesser charge of culpable homicide rather than murder, given the mishandling of evidence in the early stages had weakened the case for a full murder conviction. Finally, In 2019, a breakthrough occurred. During a hearing at the High Court, Samson Douza's previous acquittal was overturned, initiating a new trial. The pivotal evidence this time was a pair of orange sandals left behind by the accused, allegedly abandoned when he fled the scene after leaving Scarlet's body on a Goa beach. The first officer on the scene had noticed the sandals but initially dismissed them as irrelevant and failed to document them. Later, 4 witnesses testified that they had seen the distinctive footwear near Scarlet's body. The most compelling link to Samson was his reaction upon returning to the bar that night. He began asking if anyone had seen his missing sandals, claiming he had lost them the previous evening. When the bar owner informed him that the shoes had been found near the crime scene, Samson responded nervously, heightening suspicion. Despite multiple witnesses indicating where they were, he had searched for the items but was unable to find them. Instead of retrieving them himself, he asked another employee to collect the items on his behalf. This behavior hinted at a guilty conscience. The judges also highlighted a significant inconsistency. Samson D. Souza had previously claimed that his last interaction with Scarlet was friendly, describing her as relaxed and singing. Yet, he could not explain how, just 2 hours later, her body was discovered naked and lifeless in the waters off Anjuna beach. Ultimately, the highest court sentenced Samson D. Souza to 10 years in prison for culpable homicide not amounting to murder, criminal assault, outraging a woman's modesty, administering drugs with intent to harm or kill, and destroying evidence. He was also convicted under Goa's child protection laws for neglecting to ensure a safe environment for a minor. Meanwhile, Palacio Carvalho was acquitted of all charges related to complicity in the crime. Reacting to the verdict, Fiona expressed relief that the man responsible for Scarlet's death was finally brought to justice. She found comfort in the fact that Samson was sentenced to rigorous imprisonment, which would require him to work while incarcerated. Yet, she also reflected on the profound toll the case had taken on her. She endured years of accusations about her parenting, scrutiny of her lifestyle, and even attacks on Scarlet's character. Despite the long and painful legal process, she believed justice had been served. Scarlet had received what she deserved. While eager to move forward and rebuild her life, Fiona was open about the obstacles she faced throughout the investigation. One of the most heartbreaking was the agonizing 4.5-year delay in reclaiming Scarlet's body. Thank you for following Unreal True Crime. If you're interested in mysteries from around the world, explore our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we delve into gripping true crime stories from Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more compelling investigations.